Uranium overall had a great day again. They opened a little bit weak. Crude oil was down 6%. The overall market dropped. And then uranium stocks recovered end of day. Now spot uranium is up 52.25 on the ask. And we're seeing record conversion prices in uranium. UF6, everything is up. And next is going to be U308. There is massive coverage across the sector all over. We're talking Bloomberg. We're talking Wall Street Bets. Now I'm going to show you guys, I did post a thread on Wall Street Bets. It's got over 200,000 views now. And there's a lot of media I want to show you guys. So much positive news and a lot of great things. And it's really good for the uranium sector overall. And you guys got the last video to 1,300 likes. Thank you so much. The next bar up is going to be 1,400 likes. I'm going to ask you guys for your like number now. Now, was it a bad idea that I posted this on Wall Street Bets? Let me know in the comments below. Give me your like number. And do you think it's okay? There's 12.5 million degenerates that I really gave a crash course on uranium. There's some funny comments. Some people said that they're in now just longer than any book I've ever read. And for that reason, I'm in. I mean, there's a lot of people seeing this, right? 200,000 right now is what it's at. And it's really picking up pretty good traction. It's since died off, but I think today we're already starting to see, uranium stocks really outperform the past couple days, right? Over obviously the overall market. Let me know below, was this a bad idea? Do you think that we're in this media attention phase, or are they going to be towards the end? And guys, I mean, this is still tiny for whatever's posted, but it did make the front page. So you guys, I'm putting in extra work, not getting any sleep. Like I said, conversion price is up $1 and it's a new all-time high. Record high of $38. UF6 is $7 up today, 166. Enrichment SWU up 50 cents. And then spot is around 52.25 on the ask today. And we're starting to see this fall refueling, I think, start. As I've been saying for months, everyone, that this is really what is going to start moving the markets. Now, this is what the overall market looked like today. And oil was down 6% when it opened. So it dropped everything. It pulled uranium stocks down, but uranium stocks are doing really well. And you can see most of them all look still the same on the charts. They're still doing that big breakout right as we've seen jumping off that trend line there. And they failed the breakout of that cup and handle, that really long cup and handle that we were seeing. And then boom, they just jump right back up. And that's why really fundamentals is everything in this. I mean, Bloomberg is talking about it. Your energy crisis pushes uranium stocks to market beating returns. This was in the Bloomberg terminal. Now we're going to look at some media, a lot of media attention coverage over the last 24 hours. I want to show you those. It's really funny. A lot of these news anchors can't pronounce Cameco. I wish someone would help them out with that. It is kind of funny, but it is really starting to go mainstream. We're in that media attention phase. So let me know below, guys. Do you think that we're in this media attention phase, or is it just getting started? Give me your comment and like number and enjoy.
Check out Uranium, the Global X Uranium ETF, ticker URA, up more than 7% today. And the trade has gone absolutely atomic in the last week, rallying nearly 20%. Shares of Comco Corp, you're going to have to help me with this one, Tim, the world's largest publicly traded uranium company, surging almost 30% over that time frame. Tim, you're in the stock. I can't say I'm a uranium expert. What's going on here? What's the trade? What do you make of what's to come?
Love the writing of that copy, too. It has been an atomic move. And I'll tell you what, Cameco, CCJ, is a company that's a great way to play the space. I also own that ETF. But if you think about it, the news flow over the last 6 months has been so pro-uranium, both here at home and obviously in the last 2 weeks. You have Germany reassert what we knew, which is that they have to, they cannot close that final nuclear plant. But Japan last week talked about 2 big new nuclear projects. And this is obviously a country that has had nuclear issues and one that's back at the table. So demand side, again, go back to the numbers also that we heard from Cameco. The same as you hear in other sectors and other resources, how well are these companies being run is part of the trade in addition to the macro around it. And again, this is a company that after actually being somewhat negative, partially negative on free cash flow per share, will probably do almost a 10% free cash flow yield next year. They just signed 5 million pounds of new long-term uranium dioxide contracts.
Now there's another one. This is Bloomberg in Canada.
Canadian uranium stocks are continuing to climb as governments around the world are looking to extend the life of their nuclear energy reactors. For more, let's bring in BNN Bloomberg's Western Bureau Chief Tara Weber. Tara?
Thanks, Jacqueline. That's right. We've been talking so much about Japan changing its stance on nuclear, but over the weekend, we've heard numerous other reports of other countries, the US, Belgium, France, all planning to extend the life expectancies of dozens of their nuclear reactors. Germany also debating keeping open 3 that were set to close by the end of this year. So there is a bit of a tide shift that's happening right now. But back on August 24th, of course, that's when we started talking about Japan. They really kicked this off and made a lot of headlines. That after the country's prime minister announced that the country would restart more suspended nuclear power plants and look at developing next generation reactors.
And this is big because remember, this is a country that was plagued with nuclear accidents. And we're not just talking about reactors. We're talking about a long history. And if they are going to, take uranium and nuclear and really embrace it for the future and use it for good, obviously, this is phenomenal for the world.
As well. They're also planning to restart about 7 more reactors next summer. So it really appears that this is a big part of the conversation right now. So when we look at Japan alone, the number of reactors would come online would be increased from about 17 to 33. So that was pre-Fukushima.
33 reactors, and you guys have seen the pictures I keep showing about Japan and where the reactors are. And we're not even talking about new small modular reactors that are probably going to come up in Japan. Japan has the biggest city in the world, right? So they are really concentrated in these cities, and they really are they're very clean there. Like the recycling, the trash boxes that you have, there's like 20 different ones you got to sort out. I know a lot of you guys actually, a good amount of you in our Discord, we've got people from Japan that live there and are from Japan originally. So it is nice to see them embrace that. And it is true. It's not just West, it's the East totally embracing it.
Of course, that really changed the stance on all of this. And it really shows a significant policy shift as well. And it just shows how bad things have gotten when we think about energy right now in the world. We've got that global fuel shortage, you've got extreme weather. Countries are really hunkering down and trying to figure out the best way to have energy security for themselves. So Japan clearly paving the way here, making other countries maybe look inside as well. And what else is happening is we also have Elon Musk weighing in on this. So Tesla's CEO says countries should not shut down existing nuclear power plants. He says, quote, especially right now as Europe grapples with that energy crisis, saying limiting the use of them is insane from a national security standpoint and bad for the environment to shut them down. He even goes on to call environmentalists who oppose nuclear power as sadly anti-human. So he's gone a little bit extreme there, but nevertheless, there is a big shift underway.
Yeah, he does seem to have something to say about most things, lots of things.
He's got a point there. That's not the only coverage we got in the last 24 hours, 48 hours. Pro 50 actually sent this over.
Ukraine has clearly reignited interest in nuclear power. How much higher could these stocks run?
To the moon.
Well, the Uranium up another 10% today on the heels of several positive catalysts. And if we look at a 1-week chart, you can really see the moment when this latest leg higher began. And that was last Wednesday when Japan said it was considering restarting its nuclear operations.
Been saying it for years, guys.
For the country, of course, the Fukushima disaster back in 2011 all but shut down the nation's nuclear capacity. But now there is this global energy crunch with more and more countries reconsidering nuclear. And then here in the U.S., Guggenheim pointing to the Inflation Reduction Act, which does include credits for nuclear producers, which then provides longer-term clarity for the industry. And if we take a step back, these stocks are up a lot in the last few weeks, but they're still well below last fall's high. And that is despite what a lot of people say is a growing fundamental case for the industry. The URA and the URNM both are composed of companies in different stages of production. There's Cameco and Kazatomprom, and then there's U.S.-focused names like Uranium Energy and Energy Fuels.
Media is just going all over. It wasn't just CNBC. This is another one, and this was previously recorded. Starting to get out there. A lot of big hedge funds. On my Twitter, I've actually started to see people follow me that are hedge fund managers, big ones in some of those, or they're checking out my page because there's an option analytics. You can see that. So having that, there is publicity, big publicity. So, a lot of people are starting to get the word out. It's not just on Wall Street Bets. And it's really out there, and it's really going to be the next leg up, I honestly think.
Talk Cameco now. That's ticker symbol CCJ. Now, from what I've read on this company,
it's Cameco.
I think you're a little bit more enthusiastic about this name than I am, but that they are the world's largest uranium producer. And actually, in normal market conditions, they make up about 50% of uranium output. So this is a pretty huge uranium producer. And actually, in normal market conditions, they make up about 50% of uranium output. So this is a pretty huge company as far ours uranium. So to tell us more on this, and I need all of his fundamentals, is George Tillis, TD Ameritrade Network contributor. So George, uranium, Camco, I mean, this is a space that I am not all too familiar with, but I do know the importance of these prices and how they weigh on our everyday lives.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't either, Jenny, but it's actually pretty interesting. Uranium is a commodity that is used for nuclear fuel primarily, and where it's produced and how it's produced really matters. But Camco is a Canadian outfit or a Canadian firm. They actually have about 6% global market share of uranium ore, as well as the ability to convert the uranium, as well as fabricate it into usable forms, especially for nuclear power plants. But, you mentioned the stock is down over the last year-to-date basis. The stock is up about 68%, though, in the last 3 years. So maybe the aspects of uranium and nuclear energy are coming back into vogue because of the fact that, Fukushima back in 2011 was devastating for the nuclear power industry, but also for the environment as well. But that was the last time, 2010, in fact, was the last time Camco actually had double-digit sales growth. The last 5 years, the company has actually struggled in terms of its sales growth. It's been down on an annualized average basis in 5 years, about 8%. But what was interesting is last quarter, the company did post a solid gain of about 1%. Again, it's solid gain relative to 5-year contraction in sales. But a 1% gain year over year was actually pretty impressive for the company, which, as they mentioned, is ready to produce uranium. They have a lot of reserves and the capability to do so, but I think policy shifts from a secular standpoint. Are we ready for a nuclear energy renaissance? These are, again, questions policymakers and advocates, as well as, voters need to ask themselves. We talk about, electric vehicles. We need electricity to produce it. We need reliable electricity because even though solar and wind, as well as tidal power, is available. Again, it's not very reliable and it's still very costly. Coal, there's plenty of coal, but we know that there are a lot of externalities associated with burning coal. So there's a give and take that, we have to make and decisions we have to make from a policy perspective, as well as from a constituents perspective, whether we're ready for nuclear fuel to produce cleaner and more reliable power, especially with demands towards the electric grid away from hydrocarbon fuels used for automobiles.
Yeah, George, there's a lot of moving parts still within this space. And of course, there's no way to know for sure how things shape up. But there's certainly almost this, spirit of the age, if you will, of moving away from, traditional fossil fuels, particularly things like coal as well. And really putting a lot of, conscious on kind of the environmental impact of things. And one thing's for sure, without discounting the added risks, of course, of these type of facilities, it's certainly a much cleaner source of fuel if done right when you look at nuclear power sources, and certainly from an efficiency and cost standpoint can be beneficial as well. So with these lofty goals that so many of these different municipalities have to federal governments and places across the globe, at some point there's just capacity concerns. How are you going to achieve that? And one thing that keeps coming back, and it has to overcome regulatory concerns, it has to come over safety concerns and public perception concerns, is nuclear power. CCJ potentially a proxy for the space entirely.
It is. You have to consider where they're at. I mean, they're a Canadian company. Canada is a friendly, corresponding nation of the United States in terms of trade and relationships. The other thing is you have to think about policy here quickly. And point of production, Kazakhstan is actually the largest country that produces uranium with about 22% market share. So any political turmoil in that area of Eastern Europe, we talk about Russia and Ukraine, any flare-ups in that region of the world could cause prices of uranium to shoot up. And that would be certainly a benefit for companies like Cameco, which, again, are produced here in North America and sold mostly in North America. But also going back to the secular shift and the appetite for nuclear energy, you have to think about the localized externalities. In other words, pollution that is created from nuclear fuel, albeit against storage and safety, is more localized. It's in a local region, whereas, burning fossil fuels, air travels around the globe. So if coal is being burned in China, the externalities are not localized. They're actually global. So, there's a give and take, and it's not just the United States and local governments that can go through and at the federal and state and local level to approve additional nuclear power. It really has to be something that's agreed upon from a global standpoint. So it's an interesting conversation, a lengthy one so to speak. But we talk about clean energy, but we forget about the ability to produce clean energy using nuclear fuel. But again, we have to think about some of the other externalities which aren't really seen up front, but can carry on in future generations, especially if there's another aspect or a terrible disaster like Fukushima, like we saw back in 2011.
Yeah, and George, I think a lot of times these companies with these ESG exposure get sort of put on the back burner because, of course, clean energy is expensive and not something that a lot of people often talk about, but still a very important conversation to have. And I believe it is in some way the future, or at least I hope, so definitely important to talk about.
And my favorite media of yesterday, and this is probably why uranium stocks closed up green, is because Jim Cramer said that UEC and uranium overall was too hot for him. So he was not bullish on it, so that means it's going to go to the moon. So listen to this.
What's going on?
Jimmy, I've been hearing a lot of talk about nuclear being clean energy all of a sudden. Worldwide, I'm hearing this, and that it's needed to help us hit our clean energy goals.
Indeed.
Elon Musk is on board, Bill Gates, the Biden administration, and presently 20% of U.S. electricity is from nuclear that we primarily get from Russia.
By the way, which one of you called in? This is one of you viewers, isn't it? One of you subscribers. Gotta know. Who was it? Alan. Is this really Alan? Alan in Florida? I gotta check.
To me, like we're going to need some American uranium. What do you think about UEC?
Definitely. Okay, now this is Canadian, and the problem with it.
What? It's American. Still an American company. Their assets majority. Well, they did just get a lot of Canadian assets, but they got the Uranium One assets. They're out of Texas.
This group is so red hot that it is too sizzling for me. So I'm going to take a pass. I know the put's up 7%, the ETF's up 7%. Just today, that is too dangerous for me. I'm going to have to say no for now.
No for now. Okay. Well, that's great. That's the best news we probably had. Last time Jim Cramer, I think, was called in, he was saying, oh, these are looking good. And that was the down day we had, I think. So as long as we go against whatever Cramer says. But no, in all reality, eventually he's probably going to be on board, and the stocks are still going to be doing good, obviously. He's going to have to cover them when they're going to be beating the market overall. So the IAEA, actually, the support mission, they actually did land at the Z plant. So this is really bullish for nuclear energy as well. And it's really just showing that once they are going to be reporting official numbers, we know exactly really what's going on. It's going to be good. And there's probably somewhat of a ceasefire. I really doubt that Ukraine obviously is going to be firing. And with Russia welcoming them there to the plant, it's really likely to also help the overall industry. I know a lot of people I know in the Discord and everything, some of them have sold, had some cash ready because they thought this was an issue. If you haven't seen this, there was the post. You guys have a link to it in the community tab. I posted this first to you guys in the subscribers to YouTube. But all this info, it's very long. It is actually pretty funny when I posted this. Someone said that this is longer than any book I've ever read, and for that reason, I'm in. As I said, a lot of people are starting to see this. We see 198,000 views, right? This is still in the early infant phase. There's 12.5 million, degenerates there on Wall Street Bets. It was on the front page. It was like top 30 tracking it last night, guys. I didn't get any sleep last night. I stayed up all night again for you guys, for any breaking news. I feel like it's my duty. I've been talking about uranium for years. So now that things are really starting to kick off into the next leg, it's my duty to educate the world on this. Now, this was also today. This is really good. So Korea, their nuclear share is set to increase to almost 1/3 by 2030. So they're going to be spending a lot of money. Korea is really leading the way, and they're looking at Egypt, building those plants. It's going to really help out. I think, anywhere in the Middle East, especially, Saudi Arabia, Korea is really pushing it. And I think maybe they're going to fill a lot of that place that Russia had, especially in the future with new technology coming out, small modular reactors. Now, uranium, this won't be updated till tomorrow. We're over 50 now, but the only thing else was really cold. But for uranium futures just by themselves, they beat this. So, with oil going down that much in, gas in the UK, it's still up obviously for the month, but it had a big pullback. Crude oil, gasoline, everything was down. So that's what initially pulled down the overall market. So UEC, Swiss National Bank, lifted their holding shares in UEC. So there's actually a big amount of institutions that are buying, but we did have a big amount of selling too. My buddy Lewis Morgan, his shares transferred today. So he actually owns a lot more than they actually do as well. And the Swiss bank, National Bank, he owns, so it's probably close to 0.35% or so of UEC he actually owns. So that was what I said, especially in the initial open today. I think a lot of those UEX shareholders could have been selling, taking some profits, and they were held in UEX for about a year or so. Those shareholders might have wanted to take some profits. Now, I want to show you guys, this is where we're at with the reactor. We had the first one yesterday that started to go down for these refueling cycle that we're going to see, and this is what it's going to look like, and this is going to be the capacity outage. So we're going to see that. I think this is what the uranium chart's probably going to look like this coming into the fall. Now, another thing, it's weird how a lot of these charts all coincide, right? Well, every time you saw a peak here, it would have been a great time to sell uranium. This is Google search since 2004, from pretty much the peak here when we saw uranium prices back during the last uranium bull market. Anytime we saw the biggest peak, it's usually a good time to sell. So day swing traders, this is some data I always look at, but look where we're at right now. We're just starting to take off again. So we're not even anywhere near where I think it'll be. This is usually spring and fall. Look, boom, spring, fall, right as we start off the spring refueling cycle. And then obviously September last year. And it really does kind of coincide, and you kind of see what people are searching for as well. So uranium energy stock, you can see Uranium Energy Corporation, this breakout. That's where really people are starting to search this from. So this is some good data that I always like to have in there. And I mean, we are going mainstream. You can see here, how to invest in uranium. This is Forbes. And they have somewhat good information here, but you guys, you still gotta do your own research. There's a lot of probably new people coming into the stocks yesterday that might have sold again today as well, that were kind of got scared with the overall market. And look, we're up again. Now, Sprott Physical Uranium Trust, this should update very soon, but it looks like they're going to be actually in that premium. And today the share price was up even more. So we're probably going to see them start to buy more. They're 57.6 million pounds still. And as you can see, really haven't bought much. But when this September, October buying volume comes back, we're talking over 1 million pounds in a day. UXC said that they don't even know if there's $1 billion worth left in there in the spot market. And I think we're going to see a lot more buyers come in. Now, this Barron's, Elon Musk says nuclear plants must remain open. So uranium stocks are surging. So these are some of the past things just in the past, 24, 48 hours analysis. So France braces for uncertain winter as nuclear power storage looms. What is it? 32 of the plants are down. It's over €1,000. We're getting more coverage. And so people are able to start to see that nuclear is needed. Now, this is what uranium stocks percentage are up this week, and this is how good they're doing. This is their percentages. Some of these are up 40%, right? Deep yellow, a bunch of these. But if we're looking at the biggest uranium market cap stocks, this is what really matters. This is what gets really the publicity, especially on like Wall Street bets. Like, you can't talk about a stock unless it's over $500 million market cap. So deep yellow and up, but look at some of the percentage gains in some of these, 40%, 30% in energy fuels. UEC is 23%. And guys, if you're new to the channel, this little tab here that I have all this, by the way, it's in the link in the description below if you want access to this. I've got uranium tier ranking, all this, pretty much all this data, my exit strategy, loss gain chart, a lot of, great things for you, uranium stocks to possibly avoid. And this is just uranium stocks that are usually coming in. But you guys can see that the gain percentage since March of 2020, this is when I entered uranium stocks. Look at them. Some are up 1,000%, right? Almost 1,000 in Centrus. And these have hit 52-week highs. These are a lot higher back last September, October. So this is how far we are down off last year's highs. So there is massive, massive parabolic upside in my opinion. So a lot of info to cover. These are just some media news blitz blast that I'll give you guys. So the real elephant in the room is going to be Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is really where it's going to be, this big oil. I really think they're going to go nuclear. So this was great news. So the Mihama nuclear reactor, this is the one here that's going, number 3 is going to be up in 24 hours. And then in 3 weeks, it'll be at commercial operation. Remember, there's 17 nuclear power plants coming up by next summer. This was the 40-year-old plant. This is a very old plant. The fact that it's come up, it's very impressive. Okay, so this is a nuclear energy renaissance. Now, if we get 30 plus nuclear power plants coming back up, a lot of these no one ever saw coming, not just 17, but 30 plus. We're talking about a crazy uranium demand that's coming. This is going to come at the time where we see not just a demand from the East, but the West needs it as well. And as I said earlier, so UEC, those UEX shares transfer today. So UEC has 307 million pounds of uranium, 5 million pounds of that physical uranium at $38. That at $200 will be worth close to over $1 billion, right? So zero debt, $180 million in cash and liquid assets. It's the second most liquid uranium equity. That's why I love day trading, swing trading it. It's the largest diversified portfolio, obviously, in North America. Highest grades with these joint ventures. So as you can see, this is Cameco and this is UEC. It's really getting close to beating out. This is what it looked like in 2006, right? So this is very tiny back then. And look what the stock price went up to, $935. Market cap was smaller, but they only had 25 million pounds of uranium. They have these tier one assets. Look at the grade, the highest grades in the world. These are their assets now. These ones with the symbol. So we can see also this is the most pounds on this side. So look where they're setting up to be, right? And as I said earlier, a lot of hedge funds are starting to buy into this. A lot did sell. That's why we saw the pullback as well. Another funny thing, so Elon Musk has filed this paperwork to terminate Twitter agreement, $44 billion. And I said that this could literally, he could pretty much, for the market cap wise, 30, less than $40 billion for the uranium sector. He could technically buy the numbers, all the uranium companies, right? So it's really crazy when you look at it that way. That's how small we are still in uranium. Do you think we're in this media attention phase? Does the fact that we're getting all that media I just showed you? And also I went and checked out, there are record job postings for these nuclear related jobs in the last month. And then fall and spring refueling's happening. Now look at all these. These are all the reactors going down that I just told you guys earlier about. These new job postings for a lot of these. And this is the fall and spring, see? Now this was the job postings. These are all the job postings just in the last 6 hours that I tweeted out. And there's multiple ones, record ones. And then if you go on, look at the history, back in March, there were job postings for 2 years on there. So this really is that nuclear energy renaissance. And as I showed you that chart before, this was every time we saw this green spike up in uranium prices, this uranium price, I've said it before, if you're new to the channel, this is the fall and spring refueling. And this is where we're gonna be. I think it's gonna break out to $75 very quickly. And this one's getting a lot of traction. A lot of people are starting to noticed about this news. And really, guys, I think I covered this news, but it really didn't hit me. It really didn't start to come to terms with what could happen until I was really digging deep into my uranium cartel book from the 70s and really put two and two together and said, you know what? Yeah, Saudi Arabia, that's really their next push is nuclear energy. And they're going to have to hedge, just in the past month, since this came out, we've had so many countries say that they're going to get rid of the sale of gasoline vehicles. So obviously we still need fuel. We still need gas. As Elon Musk said, I was an engineer in the Coast Guard. That was one of my jobs. So believe me, I know that engines are needed. I know that these fuel combustion engines are needed. When Elon Musk was building his gigafactory, there was 100. I watched the drone footage, 100 big rig trucks that were there with big machinery, and none of them were electric. They all used obviously diesel. So we can't get rid of fuel. The military, uses a ton as well, but really nuclear energy is going to be helping take a lot of that away when we start to see more ships that are nuclear powered. I mean, they're the best. And we could see new type of propulsion systems in space for Elon. If SpaceX gets on that, NTPs, and I've been tweeting him for years, seeing if he'll do that. Because in my theory is that you could take a nuclear thermal propulsion system, which is double the speed of a normal one, can send it to space via the Cosmodrome, one like Russia has, where you launch it in the middle of the Pacific, right, away from everyone. So I don't necessarily see this as a risk. I think it could be good nuclear thermal propulsion. Or if you don't want to send fuel up in space, you could at least use these nuclear reactors, small modular reactors in deep space where you have not good sunlight, or there's dust, or your solar panels get messed up. You have heat from those reactors and you don't need to fuel for years, right? So this is really my kind of thesis. Now, this was another one, and I've covered it on here, but this really got passed up with the Saudi Arabia news. But this Holtec, this new massive nuclear power plant, gigafactory type thing that they're wanting to build for these small modular reactors. They're looking to get $7.4 billion with this government loan. They're going to want to mass produce small modular reactors. It's like a gigafactory. This is huge news. I don't know why this doesn't have more than the Saudi Arabia thing. Obviously, I think that's going to be the biggest of all time if Saudi Arabia and big oil goes to uranium and nuclear. It'll be the biggest catalyst of all time. But this is right there with it, in my opinion. If they can get something like this going in the US, small modular reactors, and get them going out like a gigafactory would be, wow, we're going to see, this is something I could see Elon Musk buying out. Holtec, Camden Energy, company like this, and LEU Centrus Energy as well. Speaking of Centrus Energy, can you believe this stock is close to $50? We were right over here not too long ago, $17. And if you know, in the Discord, I was telling everyone that this stock is the most undervalued in the market. You guys have seen, if you've followed me for multiple years, I've talked about this when the PE ratio was literally like a 1.5, and they were bringing in 300 million revenue, and the market cap was basically nothing, under 100 million. This was something in the Discord a lot of people did great on. I had bought and swing traded it as well, especially when we were down here. This was crazy times. Look how much we're up. And remember, initially I got in this stock about $4, which was way back here. And a lot of people in uranium, a lot of uranium hedge funds, a lot of clowns were shorting the stock, and they got their butts squeezed up to here. So then they finally tapped out up here. And that's why a lot of people didn't like me, is because I actually was talking about this stock. I was talking about, Westwater Resources, UEC now, obviously. And a lot of these companies in the past, people didn't like them, right? Because there was, uranium bear market, and there was dilution and things of that nature. But, Westwater Resources did a similar move. That stock went from $1.80 when I broke it in the Discord in 2020, and it went up to $18. And people, there were millionaires made. You can go look at my previous videos, go look at the comments. People commented on it. Now, people were crazy in 2020, going all in some stocks. And we saw a massive move, but I broke the news for that specific stock. And for this one, I did video on video for this as well. And a lot of posts, a lot of my stuff was out digitally in the Discord. Now, it's really the perfect time for me, as you guys seen, the volatility, to get back into day and swing trading. And that's really what's on my list now for uranium, is to get into that. Now, guys, let me know below, did you sell out today on the initial drop for uranium? Let me know your like number. And was it a bad idea that we're getting all this publicity? Are we in the next round for uranium? And is uranium going to continue to beat out the market? And what's going to happen? Let me know below. Guys, thank you so much for the support. I'll continue to make these if you guys like them. If you guys don't get it to 1,400, that's going to be okay. I still love you guys so much. Thank you again, and until next time.